Okay. You guys are crazy shoppers. Kingdom shopping. There's nothing like it. It's exhilarating. Who knew, right? Wow, okay, I'm going to gather myself together just a minute because my heart is racing. I couldn't find my Bible, and I might as well not show up if I can't find my Bible. So, oh, goodness. What was I going to say? After being here for just a few hours, I remember when I was in 5th grade and I didn't want to play the piano anymore. And my parents said, well, that's fine, but you'll probably regret that one day. But what do they know, right? When you're 10, not much. So I stopped playing the piano. And then I got into high school and college, and as I began to sing more and more, I really regretted stopping playing the piano. One of the other things that I did in life that I stopped doing, that today I realize how much I regret, was I stopped pursuing my Espanol. I was a really good Spanish student in high school, and I even did it in college, and now I've lived in Orlando for 15 years. That was how, I can really use it there, and I didn't, and I'm very sad. Now I'm very sad because I know just enough to get myself in trouble, kind of like my Mandarin, Except Spanish is a lot more forgiving than Mandarin. You just have one tone off and you have cursed someone's mother. It's pretty scary. So all I know is, mas and que lindo and, ¿cómo está? Hola. And let's see, los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. And what else do I know? Muy guapo. And something else I won't tell you that I know that is not nice. Because when you learn it in high school, right? You use it. So anyhow, so I'm really regretting that I can't get up here and speak fluently, but I guess, that's just God's way. So hopefully I can pick up on a few things you guys are saying. I'm like, oh, I know what that means. I know what they're saying. I like my purple shirt. What does she mean by that? No, I'm just joking. No, so anyhow, my portion of today is talking to you about hope. And Dawn did such a beautiful job of kind of setting up our day and setting up our morning. And hope is something that I thought I had. And then God allowed a few situations in my life to show me that I really didn't have the kind of hope that could not be shaken. I said that I had hope, and I believed that He was my hope, but He put me in a little crucible of time and showed me that I actually didn't believe in my actions what I believed in my head. He brought me to a place where my theology and my reality had to meet and had to become one. And the message of hope and having hope is really for anybody. It's for anyone who's in the midst of circumstances and finds themselves needing hope or being reminded of the hope that they have. In order to fully embrace hope, we have to believe that God is good and that He desires what is best for us. We must trust in Him and in His goodness. We must release our desire to control the circumstances of our lives and trust in His plan and in His timing. We must not hold on to something so much and for so long that we begin to believe that the guarantee of its desired outcome will bring us hope. If I get this, if this pans out the way I want, then I will have hope. If we continue on the journey of hope, we're going to have to release that very thing we grip onto to His keeping, finding instead that He is the hope. The journey to hope isn't a journey to seeing, it's a journey to believing. It isn't a journey to an outcome, it's a journey to a person. All the desire that we have to see that thing accomplished, finished, done, merely echoes a deeper desire within us to be complete, to be whole, which can only be found in Jesus. If we believe that a particular outcome will bring us peace, we have to see that He is our peace. If we believe that having things turn out the way we desire will bring us deliverance, we have to come to a place where we see Him as our deliverer. If we believe that an end to our suffering will bring us ease, we must see that He is the comfort that we're actually seeking. The journey to hope isn't as much about finding peace while we wait. It's more about finding the Prince of Peace in the wait. So I share these things with you not as an expert, because I'm not an expert in really anything. But I joked with the gals, I said, one day I'm going to go to a speaking event and I'm going to come in my yoga pants and I'm not going to put any makeup on and I'm not going to do my hair, which as a Southern woman could be a tragedy because we're all about the hair. But I'm going to do that because I feel like that will prove the point that, we can dress up just about anything and make it look good. But we are all a beautiful mess somewhere at every point in our lives. And just because something looks put together doesn't mean that it always is. You never know what someone else is going through, even if you think you know them better than anyone else. There's always pieces of our lives that we hide from someone else. We hide from even those we're closest to. But I want to share with you my journey to hope. I walked through the valley of the shadows for several years looking for a hope that I could cling to. And for 3 long years, I waited for hope to come to me until I came to see that Jesus was the hope I was really looking for. And my story of hope is about our adoption of our youngest daughter. I had always had a desire to adopt. I have 2 biological children. But my family growing up in Mississippi and Louisiana, I just say I'm from the Gulf Coast because I'm from Pensacola and Louisiana, Mississippi, and lots of different places along there. We had lots of adopted children. I had a lot of cousins who were adopted. And of course, at that time, it was from the domestic foster care system. And I don't know, I played with them and loved them, and it wasn't until I was a little older that I even knew they were adopted. And then something about that, God captivated my heart. And I thought that is one of the neatest ways to expand a family. It just captured my heart as a child. And I remember thinking, okay, so they didn't have a mom and dad who could take care of them. And now they do. And they have a family, a huge family. And there's so much love, and they could have not had that, but now they do. And the difference maker, the game changer, was adoption. So even after my husband and I married and we had children and life kind of kept going along at the pace, once it gets into the pace, it's just kind of hard to stop and do anything different, right? And that desire would not go away. My husband and I were not always on the same page. And that's often a story in adoption, many times. So I knew that God had to change his heart because I had learned enough at that time and had been married long enough to know that I couldn't change him. And I didn't want him to do it because I nagged him to death about it. I wanted this child deserved harmony and unity in the desire to bring her into our home. So that was a faith walk itself, to just let God do that or not do that. And then do something with that desire in my heart. So in 2007, I went to China to work in the shelters of Eden. And while I was there, we had a really difficult but good night of ministry in the red light districts. And if you've ever gone on a mission trip, you know that the spiritual environment is so different in other places that you go to. And in China, it's very charged, but it's very, very dark. The spiritual environment there is very dark. It's very heavy. And so we had just, been battling a spiritual battle all day, all night. That night, I went to bed with Chris Tomlin praise music in my head because I was afraid to go to sleep that night because of just the things that I had seen and taken in. So I kind of just had it washing basically my brain all night long so I could sleep. The next morning, we got up, we went to another ministry for the deaf, which is the largest unreached people group in China. There's over 70 million deaf, and they often get caught up in gangs and things. So we went to a workshop where they made beautiful things as well. And when we were leaving, we were going down a street in just an average, everyday place in China. We weren't in something special and glitzy and, styled up for the Westerners. It was real China. And, slums and things just falling apart. And about that time of day, the kids were coming home. They come home for lunch, and then they go back if they're a certain age. So the kids were coming home, and there was this little girl, and she was sitting on the steps. And let me stop there and say that right before I went to China, a few years before that, that desire to adopt had become very specific, and it was in my heart to adopt from China. So when I went to China in 2007, I had kind of a bittersweet feeling in my heart in that I was very excited to go, but in my mind, no one goes to China more than once in their life, right? It's a chance of a lifetime kind of thing, and here was my chance of a lifetime, and I was coming back without the desire of my heart. So I kind of felt like God was a little cruel to send me there and have me leave empty-handed, because that's kind of where I was sometimes in my inner thoughts about God, the ones you don't tell other people that you feel. And so I had this image of what she would look like. I have 2 boys. I'd never had a biological daughter, and at that point, when I pictured what my daughter would look like, she always looked Chinese to me. She never looked like me or my husband. She just always looked Chinese to me. This little girl's on the stoop, and she's just sitting there, and her hair is pulled up in pigtails. And I look at her, and I'm like, that's the little girl that's like been in my head all these years. That's her face. That's what she looks like to me. And immediately my heart sunk. And I thought to myself, because I'm really good at feeling sorry for myself, we're working on that. I said, how sad that I will never be able to have that. My husband's just not on the same page with me about adoption. How sad. And in my spirit, I heard him say, you're coming back for her. And I thought, okay, now he's playing tricks on my heart, and now I'm mad. So I'm like, God, after everything I've seen in the last couple of days and last night, this is just too much. It's just too much. It's too much to find the hope and long for that. Because what if you don't do it? What if I think I'm hearing you and it's not you and you don't do it and I'm crushed? And then when I'm crushed, you're involved. So now I got to figure out how I feel about you now. But I'm so in love with you after being away from you for 10 years of my life and coming back to you. I know I can't breathe without you. So now I got to breathe with you but not really want you to be in my thoughts because I'm mad at you. So all this is going on, and if you know me, you know it's like, you talk about the squirrels in the head, Beverly or somebody said this morning. They're just constantly tumbling in there. So I just kind of tabled it and said, that's too big for my heart. I don't want to deal with the thought of that right now. I've got to focus on this trip. And I didn't think about it anymore. Well, when I came home, my son said to me at my first American meal after coming home, which it takes you a while to adjust, they said, well, where's our sister? I'm like, what do you mean, where's your sister? Well, we thought that you were bringing a sister home. I'm like, because I had told them about my desire, because they would, you can have any more babies? No, Mommy's not going to have, if I ever had any more children, I would want to adopt, and I would want to adopt from China. I just told them that as part of our life together. Well, why didn't you just bring one home? Like, well, Mommy wouldn't come home if I tried that. So, it doesn't work that way. Oh, how I wish it did, right? It doesn't work that way. And then my oldest son said, so why aren't we adopting? Now, my husband's sitting next to me the whole time, and I'm like going, oh, this is so awkward. This is so awkward, but God, I know you're doing something, but did you have to do it so awkward, And I said, because I'm like answering knowing the conversations we've had, and why aren't we adopting? Do you care to explain that? And I'd only been home 2 days, so I didn't want to fight yet, So I said, well, he said, is it money? I'm like, well, money is a thing. It takes money to adopt internationally. There's so many government fees and agency fees and things like that you have to pay. Travel, you have to pay, but it's not really money. If it's something God wants us to do, it's his business to provide the money for it. And he said, well, if it's money, I'll mow more yards. Like, okay. We eat. He goes, is it because our house isn't big enough? I said, no, I don't think it's because our house isn't big enough. He goes, well, because I just got my own room, but I'll move back in with Justin if it's that, and she can have our room. And Justin was young. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I said, no, it's not that. And he goes, Mom, we're not a perfect family. I'm like, I'm glad you've already realized that. Thanks for the testimony. Mom, we're not a perfect family, but we do have a lot of love to give. And I just said, okay. So I started to secretly, and I don't do things behind my husband's back. I'm not one of those buy it and don't tell him. But I did have some adoption agencies start sending me paperwork, like packets, like this is how much it costs. And I just felt like I needed to step out, right? We're not going to know if we don't kind of go into this a little bit. We can't stand here and go, God doesn't want us to do this when we haven't even stepped into it. Okay, so we got to step into it a little bit and start giving him places to show us, right, that no, this isn't the way or this isn't the way. So I forgot after a while, and my husband caught the mail one day. What is this? And I'm like, oh, that. Yeah, I have been I don't know where you are with it, and that's fine, but I want to look through this and stuff. So long story short, he said to me one day, I said, well, I don't want you to adopt because of me. He goes, honey, I love you so much, and I want you to be happy, but I will not adopt a child for you because that's not fair. But God has shown me that this is what we need to do. And actually, he showed me about 6 or 7 months ago when you, of all places in the world he could have sent you, he sent you to China. He said, and that was the handwriting on the wall for me. I was just kind of waiting to see if it was still your heart to do it. So we proceeded. And for 7 months, I did paperwork. Becoming a citizen of the United States of America is no small chore. And telling people that you're normal and proving it is no small chore. I mean, there's nothing about my husband and I that China and America do not know. I had a hard time getting my driver's license renewed the other day, and I'm like, seriously? I mean, China knows my weight, my BMI, and my eye color, and I have to show you my birth certificate? It was just crazy, just so much red tape and so much paperwork. So we logged in our paperwork, and at that time, there was a 3-year wait for a non-special needs adoption to proceed in China. And so what I realized was I had this longing. God brought me into it. I knew this is what he wanted us to do, and then I got there, and now I had this weight ahead of me that the best case scenario was 3 years. But once we got there, we realized there were 20,000 families ahead of us in line. And it was taking them a year to process, like a month or two of dossiers that would come in. It used to take them a month to do 3 months of dossiers, and now it was taking them a year to do 1 month. And I'm not a mathematician, but the best case scenario we were starting to get was approximately a 10 to 12-year wait. All of our paperwork is in. Our hearts are there. We know God brought us here. We know God brought us here. I'm going to be the next Sarah and Abraham on the planet Earth. I'm going to be 102 flipping years old when my daughter from China comes. I'm going to be lucky to having any living family members left when she gets here. And I'm just like, oh, what have you done? What is this, some kind of cosmic disaster? Are you trying to break me? Yes. But not with the motive that I first thought that he was. So I got to a place where I realized I did not have a single shred of hope that I was going to have my daughter in anywhere between 4 to 6 years. You can graduate from high school and sometimes college in that length of time. So think about how your children go through high school and then college. All that time we would sit waiting, and it could possibly be longer. Most of the people who are getting their children now who are non-special needs children, this was a healthy child basically, they've just brought them home. They've waited right now at 6 to 7 years to receive that child. My children would be out of the house before she came in. And I didn't have a shred of hope. I was completely obliterated in my soul. I felt like a mess. I was a mess for about a month. And then I realized I had these 2 other children who were watching me. And I had this choice to make. I could either waste the wait, or I could embrace the weight of the waiting. And I could allow it to make me stronger and be present for my children that were there in that time. And I knew that I had lived such a life of defeat that obviously God had something in it for me. You know, just when you think you've gone through this difficult time, what else could God possibly want to do in you? Then something else comes along, and you realize that you're just never going to be done. You're going to be victorious, but you're never going to be done until we see his face. That's one of the beauties of seeing him one day at the end of this journey, at the end of this race, is that not only seeing him and all that goes into that, but then we will know it's over. It's done. It's done. That's one of the exciting things about his return. So I realized I didn't have hope for our situation to improve, not deep down in my soul. Not deep down in my soul. I had worry, I had anxiety, distrust of God, and just flat out unbelief. I knew that I felt like he had lured me into the wilderness. And instead of to speak love to me there, I felt like he had lured me there to kill me, to just break me down. But what I learned was that he had lured me there, but it was to speak love to me in a way that I had not known before. Everything we experience in life is sifted through the hands of a very, very loving Father. Every obstacle, every hindrance to hope, every journey to hope is an opportunity to see our Father at work on our behalf. It's an opportunity to see the cracks in our armor. How else will we see the cracks in our armor? The places our soul constantly leaks out if we don't have things come into our life to shine a light into our darkness. So that was one of the things I learned in those years of waiting, was that I still had so many cracks there, and I began to see difficulty and pain and suffering as an opportunity rather than an assault. So the first lesson that he taught me in the waiting was that the journey to hope is about knowing that God is good, not saying that he's good. It's not about saying that he's good. It's about knowing in the deepest place of your heart, no matter what's happening, no matter what the outcome ends up being, it doesn't mean he's not good. No matter what happens, he is still good. His goodness is not temperamental. It can't be changed. It's who he is. I cannot get rid of my Southern accent. It's who I am. I can't get rid of that. I don't want to get rid of it, but I can't get rid of it. It's just who I am. You know, it's God. You know, no matter what happens in the situations we're clinging to and longing for, or wanting to change, or person that we want to change, or something we want to happen in our life, it's not happening, whatever it is completely, has nothing to do with God's goodness. He is good. But what we have to do is we have to say, I will accept that you are good, even if I don't get what I want in the end. Even if this doesn't happen the way I want it to. I was saying, Lord, I'm doing your will. Why are you allowing me to suffer? Because there is a misunderstanding, especially in the North American and the Western church, that really doesn't exist in any other places where the gospel has spread into other countries, in the more dark places, third world countries, places like that, they expect suffering. They live suffering. It's what they've always known. And even when they come to Christ, they don't expect that God's removing the suffering. In the Western church, what we say is, come to Jesus and everything will turn out right. We've taken the verse that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, and we have turned it to mean all things work together and you get what you want when you love the Lord. You don't always get what you want. That's why it's a sacrifice of praise to love him anyway, to believe in his goodness. Romans 8:31 and 32. What then shall we say to all of this? If God is for us, who can be against us? Who can be our foe if God is on our side? He who did not withhold or spare even his own son, but gave him up for us all, will he not also with him freely and graciously give us all other things? And those are the things that he knows we need. And sometimes we need a season of waiting or suffering or discomfort in order to grow. Think about the lessons you've learned in Christ so far. Have they always come in times of joy? Or have they come in the difficult seasons where you didn't think you had anything, but you realized you had him and that was everything? That is where he teaches us. If God isn't for us, if he's not on our side, no one is. No one is, even if you think they are. If God isn't for us, and he is, then no one is for us. But if God is on our side, then what circumstance can overcome us? And here's the definition of overcome: to gain the victory. What circumstance can gain the victory in our lives if God is on our side? If God is on our side, what circumstance can win us, can win over us? Nothing. The other definition is to conquer, to be beaten, to bury, unable to continue. So if you insert that into that verse, if God is on our side, what circumstance can render us unable to continue? Because that's what we think. That's why we fear the suffering and the pain of life. We're afraid we won't be able to get past it. We don't want to deal with our junk and knock down the bricks on the wall. We don't want to do that because we believe the lie that says that the pain that you are in is not as bad as the pain you will be in if you try to knock down that wall. That was the lie that held me captive for a huge portion of my life. If I deal with my past, and I deal with what happened to me as a child, and then how I acted out through that as an adolescent, and the mistakes I made, and just the stupid that I committed, if I face those things, I'm going to be in so much pain, I won't be able to move on. I'll just crumble, and I'll just be this mess of a person the rest of my life. And that was a lie. But that pain for me got to be so great. And you know what? I didn't do it for myself. I did it for my kids. I cannot seem to ever do anything for myself. My kids and what I want them to see of me and what I want to show them motivates me more than doing it for myself. I don't know what that means, and maybe it needs some work. I don't know, but that's just where I'm at. That motivates me because I want to be a better person. They make me want to be a better person. Isn't that a movie line? I think it is. You make me want to be a better person. They do. And it pushed me to walk through the valley of the shadow of death with God. And he showed me you can get past this. Not only that, you can surpass this. You can gain the victory. He has nothing left to lose on us because he's already given his son. He has nothing left to lose. We all have past experiences in our lives that have told us that God is not good, and it started in the garden with Eve. We are hardwired to connect actions with feelings. If you love me, you show me. If you love me, you give me what I want. And what we want is control over our circumstances, and control over other people's circumstances, and control over our children's circumstances, and control over our husband's circumstances, and our friends' circumstances. We just want control. We just want to be the boss. You're not the boss of me. It's pretty much the mantra of the woman. We want to be the boss. We believe that the reason God said, do not eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, is because he knew something he didn't want us to know, and I need to know everything so I can control everything. So see, you're holding out on me, God. You don't love me because you're keeping something from me. That's what our stupidity said. But God's wisdom said, you can't bear it. You can't bear that. Just think about the things that you found out about people through social media that you wish you'd never known. You know, sometimes someone will click on a picture they like and it's attached to a really bad page. Or you notice that somebody's been scrolling through something because they don't have their Facebook locked down like Fort Knox or whatever, and you're like, I wish I'd never known. That's kind of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We always think that when God says no, it's because he's holding out on us. When he's saying, I don't want you to get hurt. It's too much for you. Only God can handle the knowledge of both good and evil at the same time. And because he knows how he made us, and he knows that we cannot handle that. We'll only learn to trust in his goodness and overcome our unbelief in his goodness experientially. In other words, we have to go through things in order to know that he's good and to overcome our unbelief. There's simply no other way. No one has written a book that's going to tell you how to make this easier. No one, if they have, don't buy it, it's a lie. No one can give you a 10-step program that says, this is how you're going to overcome your trust issues in God. There are tools out there to help you continue to foster what you're already doing with him. But there's no quick, easy path to dealing with the trust issues that we have with God. When we experience things with him, we keep it. It's ours, right? When it happens to you, you're passionate about it. And that's why I'm passionate about Eden. I've been there. I've seen it. So I'm passionate about it. I know the difference that a $10 pair of earrings makes in a girl. I know the Chinese exchange rate. I know how far that goes. I know how far it reaches. So I'm passionate about it because I've experienced it. It's the same way with God. When we tear down these walls, we are experiencing him personally. You're not just hearing me tell you about him, or you're not just reading a book secondhand. It's not secondhand knowledge. It's personal knowledge. And it changes your life. It's yours forever to keep. Isaiah 49:23 says, the latter part of that verse says, and you shall know with an acquaintance and understanding based on and grounded in personal experience that I am the Lord. For they shall not be put to shame who wait for, look for, hope for, and expect me. So what that is saying is, if you are waiting for something, if you are looking for something, if you are hoping for something, if you are expecting God to come into your life, your situation, your relationships, and do something, it says that you will know he is the Lord in that situation you're dealing with when you have an experience with him that is personal. It's grounded in personal experience. That's when you see the Lord in your waiting, in your hoping, in your longing, in your desiring, in your fear, in your anxiety. When you have a personal experience. The second lesson that God taught me while I waited was the journey to hope is about trusting God's timing and his plan. We have to let go of our plans and our preconceived ideas of how things are supposed to happen and how things are supposed to pan out in life. We have to let go of those things. Let go of control, which I know is a sacrifice of great measure. I know, I deal with that myself on a daily basis. The only thing we really have control of is our choice to trust. Anything else in your life that you think you're in control of is an illusion. Control is an illusion. We have never had control of our lives, and we never will. Why would God allow us to control our own lives? He allows us free will. He allows us to make choices, But all of our days were numbered before one of them came to be. He has a sovereign plan that he has already determined before the foundation of the earth was laid. We don't have control over anything. And if we think we do, look a little closer. It's just an illusion. It's a lie. It's a smokescreen. It's not real control. God is the only one who has control. And the only thing you can control is your choice to trust him or to not trust him. That is the control that you have in life. And that's where it begins and that's where it ends. You have to let go of the desire for safe, which is an acronym for me. Safe is staying at the same place forever. Forever. That's what safe is. Very loose acronym. Staying at the same place forever. I don't want anything to change. I don't want anything to be different. I don't want anything to not go the way that I think it should go. Or no, this is not supposed to happen. And when we just think about Christmas. When somebody wants to come in and do something different. You should see my mom when she goes, let's do something maybe in the menu different this year. And people, it's like an uprising. What? But I love the sweet potato casserole. Well, we could do this. No, it's fine. Do whatever you want to. Just leave the sweet potato casserole. And now once 12 family members all do that, you've got the same menu. Just try to do something different, Everybody wants things to stay the same way forever because safety, that's what it is. When things never change, we feel safe because we feel in control. Helen Keller said that life is either a daring adventure or nothing. What is your life? Is it a daring adventure? Because if you're in control of it, it will never be as daring of an adventure as it could be if you let God be in control of it. Who would have ever thought that I could ever end up in a red light district in a brothel in the bowels of China? I would have never said, I think I'm going to do that. On a mission trip, that's what I'll do. There's a whole story to how we even got to China. It was supposed to be another place and then another place, and God kept tweaking the trip, and it ended up being China, the one place in the world I had the most fear of going, to talk about Jesus. And here I was, this mom, 2 boys, walking through a Chinese airport with the book of Mark or John or something smuggled in the bottom of my suitcase. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. But it was so exciting. It was so exciting. At the same, standing in the customs line praying, oh God, please do not let them see. Just let them skip over it. I don't know what you do. Just do it. And there we were. It was the most exciting thing I've ever done. Being there and thinking, besides missing my family and wanting them to be with me, I could stay here forever. I could stay here forever. I would love to spill my life out this way. God's plans for you are an adventure. Our plans are nothing. They're nothing. The secret to God's plans prevailing is your plans failing. The secret to allowing God's plans to prevail in your life is to allow your plans to fail. Just give them up and let his plans prevail. It did not seem like the most brilliant of ideas to bring a toddler into a family of teenagers. I mean, what could they have in common as siblings? And, we were approaching the 40, well, my husband was already in his 40s, but I was approaching that at that time, and I'd always had this plan. I'm going to have my children in my 20s, and then I'm not going to have any children after 35 because I don't want to have amniocentesis. I don't want a needle. And then I had all these little plans. This is how we'll have our children young, and then they'll get married, and then we'll have grandchildren young. We'll be young, cool grandparents. We'll be able to go to Disney World with our grandkids. It was a beautiful plan. It involved an RV and lots of travel. And so it was just this great plan. We agreed on it the night he proposed to me. We stayed up all night and we planned it all out. So this was not in the plan. I'm tired. I don't know about getting up in the middle of the night anymore. And, things are easy. They feed themselves. They take care of themselves. They tell me when they're hurting. It was just easy. We were in a routine. It was manageable. It wasn't always perfect and easy, but you know what I'm saying? Just the daily life, it kind of got into a routine that worked. I had a lot of free time. I could write, I could have coffee, I could have lunch with friends, I could do this, meet with people to do ministry. I had nothing but time, man. And then I got to think, how many coffees and lunches can one woman have in a lifetime? Or maybe could I go on this daring adventure with God and completely deny myself and take up this cross and follow him where this is going to go? I would have never chosen for myself to start over my family in my 40s with teenagers. But it was God's plan, and she wasn't in our lives 24 hours before I realized it was the best plan ever. Every little girl deserves to be admired and adored the way that my sons adore their sister. And a little girl who's been tossed, especially. The beauty of that for our story was I couldn't have crafted it myself. That's why when I started my blog, I named it A Journey Not My Own. I don't know what journey we're on, but it's not mine, but I'm loving it. I'm loving what he can do. Don't see waiting as a hindrance, but a help. Don't see it as an obstacle, but an opportunity. The long waiting, the timing, it was all for my benefit. It was all a part of making me who I needed to be for her, helping me to get rid of some things and work through some things with God that really are crucial to being a mom of a daughter, which I did not have experience with at that point. And he began to work in me and say, this waiting is not about China not doing their job and USCIS not doing their job, and it's not about me making you suffer for just the sake of suffering because I'm God and watch what I can do and I'm the boss. And it's not about all that, Amy. This wait isn't about her. It's about you. We need to do some things, and this is the perfect way to bring those things to light. And boy, did we do some work for 3 years. The third thing that God taught me was the journey to hope is about releasing, not keeping. Don't hold on to it. Whether it's a person, a circumstance, or a desired outcome, we must release it to his keeping. That which we hope for is often so strong and so desired that it can easily become an idol. It becomes an idol. Having it, whatever your it is, having it becomes our longing, and it can quickly replace Jesus as our focus. The desire to find a husband, the desire to have a child, to have that perfect career opportunity, the desire to see something happen in your marriage or your children turn out a certain way. All those things we can hold on to as women so tight, it really becomes an idol to us. It replaces Jesus as our focus. Every song we hear, every verse we read isn't about us and Jesus. It's about, does this apply to this? Does this apply to this situation? I think he's speaking to me about this. It's just first thing you think of when you wake up, last thing you think of when you talk about it, you think about it. It just becomes obsessive. It becomes an idol. We begin to see that Jesus and our faith in him, we begin to see Jesus and our faith in him kind of as a means to an end. I'm going to bring Jesus along on this so he can kind of get me what I want. We don't see that the end, that this journey that we're on when we wait is meant to guide us toward is a deeper trust relationship with him. He is the hope. Without him, no longing is ever really fulfilled. It only satisfies for a time. For a little time. If you don't allow God to do what he's trying to do in a period of waiting in your life, getting the outcome you want is not going to really fulfill you like you think that it is. because something is still undone. Something is still unfinished inside of you. And you will deal with that again at some point in some other situation. Because when you get something, you think, oh, this is what I wanted, great, it's over. It will only satisfy you for a teeny time. It will only satisfy you for a very small time. Once we realize that He is what our heart is longing for and that He can fill the void that our waiting and desiring has exposed, then we have hope because we trust His plan, we trust His timing, we trust that He is good. Whether we receive what we long for or not, we know that we have everything our heart desires in Him. Everything our heart desires can really be found in Him. The other things are icing on the cake. Our earthly hope and what we're hoping for becomes secondary because He is the first. He is the true hope. We waited for 2 years, and we were told at the end of 2009 that there was probably going to be a shift and things were going to pick up because we're bringing in a new director of adoption in China, and that would probably, help things move along. But if it did not, then the wait would actually extend. So it was going to be kind of a all or nothing. The end of 2009, nothing changed. Nothing changed. And I said, God, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? What are you saying to us? Because I've been waiting for the end of 2009 to see if something was going to happen, to get a little shred of hope somehow in this situation. And here we are and nothing has happened. And now what am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? I mean, we're getting older, not younger. Are we supposed to get out? Did you really call us here? I don't know anymore. So I began to pray and say, God, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? And I felt like He was saying, I want you to do more. I'm like, do more? I mean, getting to this point of adoption, how many years has it taken to get here? What do you mean, more? I want you to start praying about special needs adoption. Okay, I can just see me after 2 years of being kind of a nut job at times, me to go to my husband and say, now I think we should do a special needs adoption. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. He's going to just turn me out. I mean, we're not those people. We're not the people, that's heroic, and we're not heroes. I'm really impatient. Haven't you noticed that? I mean, I can't imagine having the patience and the care. I think you got the wrong person, but I will pray about it. And then it became really evident. And then God kept asking me to go and talk to my husband, which I didn't want to. But because I just didn't want the junk to be added into the mix. I fear God hearing, well, I don't hear, and then what does that mean? And then, why don't you ever listen to God? The stuff that happens in marriage, right? And I just didn't want to do it. I didn't have the energy for it. And so I prayed about a time to ask my husband. So Christmas came along, and God had planned it so that there was this video about special needs that was out there, and it was to debunk all the myths of special needs adoption, the things that you think it means, and to tell you what it really means. And it was put together by a woman called Amy Eldridge, who is with Love Without Boundaries. And my husband had been to a leadership conference 2 or 3 months before, and guess who was interviewed at this leadership conference? Amy Eldridge, Love Without Boundaries. So that was my in, because I said, remember that lady that you came home and you talked about? And yeah, I'm like, she has the coolest video. Why don't we watch it? Okay, and we watched it. What do you think about that? I don't know, that's big. Will you commit to just pray with me about whether or not you think God might be asking us to pray about going into special needs adoption? Not going into pray about going to, yeah, I can do that. So we did that for a month and came back, and He said, let's proceed. So God called us into special needs adoption. So we have to sit down with this long list of everything that's possibly wrong with any child in China, special needs-wise, heart conditions, missing limbs, missing fingers, cleft lip, cleft palate, all these kinds of things that are considered special needs, and pick the ones that we felt like we were prepared for. Being prepared for a special needs child is like being prepared for marriage. It doesn't matter what you do, you're never really prepared for it. And so we decided through a lot of prayer that God was leading us to a child who had a congenital heart defect. And so we chose a heart baby and possibly a child who had a hearing loss. And 7 months later, God brought that to fruition. We waited all those years in traditional for a healthy child, and God moved us into special needs. And when we did, things started happening like this. And it was, again, me saying, God, your plan is so much better. I knew once we got there, he created our family for special needs adoption. I would have never dreamed that in a million years. One thing happened at the end when we signed the papers for that. They said, oh, it might be another 2 years. Okay. I just was tired at that point. I began to think that this might bring her to us sooner. That's not why we did it, but the hope of that it could. And then when I heard that and I thought another 2 years, I said, Jesus, I know you can get me through another 2 years, but I just don't want to. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so tired. And he said, just trust me. But he said, I need her back because I had made her an idol in my heart. And he showed me that. And I went through a time of prayer with some friends. And in that, I visualized in my heart seeing her face and speaking to her and saying, you're not safe in my hands. I have to give you back to Jesus. And in my prayer, I could see her, him taking her by the hand and her walking away. And when that happened, I prayed that knowing that there could be a possibility it never happened. Adoption closes down all the time. People pull out, countries close. It happens all the time. So I released her knowing that there was a chance I would never, ever hold her in my arms. Something could just go wrong, and it just never happened. But he had brought me to a place where he revealed to me that my desire for hope, for a certain outcome, was an idol, and that it would only satisfy temporarily. And if I didn't give her back to him, that it would resurface somewhere else in my life. He showed me that he was the answer to what my heart was seeking. He was what my heart really longed for. It could actually be found in him. Hope could be found in him, not in this child. It could be found in him. Jim Elliot says, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. But I had been brought to a part in this journey, the fourth lesson that he taught me. The journey to hope is not a journey to seeing, but rather believing. I finally had gotten to a point where I really believed that he was good even if I didn't get what I wanted. And I had to give that back to him and say, even if I have waited in vain, you're still God and you're still good. It's the Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego prayer. My God can do this. He can bring her to us soon. I know he can, but if he does not, I will still trust him. I will still believe him. He is still good. He is still good. Augustine says that faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of this faith is to see what you believe. Faith is to believe what you do not see, and the reward of this faith is to see what you believe. Perhaps we are seeing in our lives just what we really believe him for. Maybe what's going on in our lives is telling the story of our hearts. Maybe we're seeing what we really believe him for in what we are doing in our lives and what is happening. But 7 months after that time, on July 14th, 2010, we get this phone call in the middle of the afternoon. It was like 2:30, just random, everyday, normal day. Hi, Amy, this is Pam from CCAI. Hi, Pam. I think she needs some USCIS information. How are you? Good. We have a little girl. She's 2.5 years old. She has a repaired ventricular septal defect. She is in the province of Henan, and she's available for adoption. Are you interested in seeing her file? Like, are you kidding me? And I kept saying, God, I need to know she's the one, because in special needs adoption, sometimes you get a child's file and it is more than you can handle, or maybe your insurance will cover things. I mean, there's some practicality to this journey too. And I had said before, God, please don't send me more than one child. You know I want them all. I can't do that. I can't turn away a child. I've been waiting all this time, going, God, please don't let that be another part of this journey. Please, please, please don't put us through that. So please let me have a way of knowing that she's the one. She goes, she was born on January 12th. I said, excuse me? She was born on January 12th. Is that a problem? Is that at the age range you asked for in 2008? I'm like, no, that's my answer. She goes, what do you mean? I said, my youngest son's birthday is January 12th. And he was so happy to be able to share his birthday with his sister. And that is when I knew that she was our girl. Another group of women went to China to work in Eden about 6 months after I had initially been there, and we knew we were adopting, so I asked them while they were there, when you guys get on Chinese soil, would you please pray for my daughter? I don't know if she's born yet. I don't know where she is or what's going on, but would you pray for her? Sure, we'll do that. So the first week of March, they did that. When I was in China in 2007, I now know that my daughter was in her birth mother's womb at that time, at the exact time I was in China. She was about 7 months pregnant with her. When the second group from China went to China, that was the week that she had been abandoned at the steps of the orphanage, when they were on that soil praying for her, covering her in prayer on that same soil. Even though I couldn't be there, they could be there and pray her through that little week where her heart was broken in two when her mother relinquished her, probably because they could not afford the open heart surgery that she needed to survive. She's from the poorest province of China. So she was left on the steps of the orphanage. She was in heart failure. She'd already started to turn gray. And they brought her in and incubated her and did the long wait to see if she survived. Well, she did. They got her to 1.5 years. They did open heart surgery. And then they waited another year to see if she survived. And she did. And that's when she was put up for adoption. So she was 2 years, 8 months. But God was in that, everywhere, all over it. The fifth lesson he taught me was the journey to hope is not a journey to an outcome, but a person. Lamentations 3:24 says, the Lord is my portion or share, says my living being, my inner self. Therefore will I hope in him and wait expectantly for him. See, I thought that the journey was about getting to Gotcha Day. It was about adoption day. That's what this journey was about. It was about starting the process and getting there and getting her and done. That's what this journey was about. But it wasn't. It wasn't just about that. It wasn't until the last 7 months of that journey that I realized this entire journey was about Jesus. It was about him. It was about him revealing who he really is to my unbelieving heart. It was about realizing that all my longings and dreams and desires were springing from a thirst for more in this life that only he can provide. It was about me deciding if I would have faith in the face of undaunting, unchanging, hopeless circumstances, and then allow the truth that I learned through that journey to enter my soul and stay there. The last lesson I want to share with you is this. The journey to hope is not about finding peace while we wait for God to fulfill his promises. It is about finding the Prince of Peace in the wait. In the wait. Isaiah 26:3 says, you will guard him and keep him in perfect and constant peace, whose mind, both its inclination and its character, is stayed on you because he commits himself to you, leans on you, and hopes confidently in you. Peace is not the absence of chaos. It is the presence of God in the midst of chaos. Anyone can have peace when there's no chaos. Anyone can love someone who loves them back. Real love is loving someone who doesn't care about you and loving them anyway. Real peace is being able to say, I know whom I've believed, and I believe that he's faithful to keep anything I commit to him in his keeping, in the midst of chaos, and to say that in the midst of hopelessness. On September 11, 2010, our whole family boarded a plane and we flew to China to adopt our daughter, who we so personally named Hope. We are actually in the process of adopting again right now. We're insane. We are so insane for Jesus. I turned my dossier in next week, and now we wait again, possibly another, I thought it was going to be the end of this year, and maybe another year and a half or 2 years. It's not going to happen as soon as I thought it was going to happen, but I've learned enough from that journey to sustain me, to know that God's got it. I mean, that timing, it was painful to wait, but when we got her, I'm like, oh my gosh, one day off. This was perfect. She's perfect for our family. She's not perfect, but she's perfect for our family. Perfect for our family. And so on September 16th, just a few weeks ago, was our 3rd anniversary of our Gotcha Day with Hope, when God placed her in our arms for the first time and for good. And as I got on that bus that morning to head to the Foreign Affairs building to adopt her, where they bring the children, it was the most surreal experience of my life. Only thing that felt close to that was when I actually had my children, and you have the child and they place them, on your chest, and you're like, whoa. And I could tell you, the love in my heart was exactly the same for the children who came from my womb and the daughter who was born from my heart. I feel the exact same love for both of them, for all 3 of them, rather. But the thing that kept ringing in my head was, he's faithful. He's faithful. God, you are so faithful. You are so faithful. You said you were going to do it, and you did it. You did it. You are a good God. And not because you ended up giving me what I wanted, but because you're good. Because you are good. I thought the day would never come. I doubted God was even good enough to do it. I didn't deserve it. Like Dawn's daughter was saying, I don't deserve this, so I'm sure God's going to sabotage it somehow, just to remind me that I don't deserve it. Those were my thoughts of myself talking, not his thoughts of me. That was the enemy telling me how to see myself. And for 3 years, God showed me how to see myself through him and how to see him through my circumstances. I found my all in him. In more than one way, I really found hope in that situation. And you can too, because God is good. Trust his plan. Release your plan. Believe, see his face, enjoy his peace. Ask yourself, God, where am I lacking hope? Where am I stuck? Where do I need to be reminded of your hope, of your goodness? Romans 15:13 says, may the God of your hope so fill you with all the joy and peace in believing through the experience of your faith, that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound and be overflowing, bubbling over with hope. So I want to show you a little bit of our journey to our daughter. And through this, I hope that you can see that God didn't just give us hope, but he gave her hope too, as you see what love can do in changing a child's life.